Hello YouTube friends, Ben Ochart here. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am sitting in front of the 150-gallon acrylic tank, and my intro before used to be, this is Ben Ochart with the 60-gallon. You remember that, for those of you who've been following the channel for quite some time. So we've added a few gallons to the mix. So at any rate, I want to talk with you today about moving some fish. And I had a few fish that were ready to come out of quarantine, and I want to give you an update on it. And a number of them went into this tank. One of them I tried to put in this tank that didn't work out. You saw that in my prior video, and I'll put a link over here or up here for that video. And but for the most part, everyone has settled in fine. And so here's what's going on right now with all the fish that have moved from quarantine, and also a few of them from the 100 that graduated up to this tank, up to the 150 behind me. So let's get right into it. Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you're seeing, be sure to hit that like button below and hit that bell so you get notifications. And let's get underway. Last week I had to remove the Borlei that you can see here, the Borlei quad. Beautiful fish. Love the combination of blue and orange on the body, but he was getting harassed relentlessly by the fire hap, and so I had to take him out and give him a break. I put him in the 100, but as I mentioned in my prior video, he then became a bit of a problem there in that he became a bully in the 100. So I had to take the opportunity to bring him back to the 150 at the same time that I was bringing over other fish, and hope that would help settle things, help that settle things down. Here's the biggest of the three Buccochromis nototaenias that I had in the 100. I brought him over, and I'm hoping it's a him. I've been fooled by these Buccochromis nototaenias before. Sometimes they can show flashes of color around the gills and on the sides, and ultimately turn out to be a female. I don't know, what do you think? Does this look like a male or a female to you? This was the biggest of the three that I have. His anal fin is a bit rounded, even though there are flashes of color in the body. I'm not totally convinced at this point. And even when I've tried to vent them, I've been fooled in the past. So I'm going to have to let this one play out a little bit. I also, of course, brought over the Nimbochromis livingstoni that you can see here, who has settled in very, very well. And but interestingly enough, went from that smooth blue coloration, blue-green coloration throughout the entire body that he was displaying in the 100 to the pattern that you see here, basically saying, hey, look, I'm not a threat. I might even be a female, so you don't have to worry about me. And so I'm just going to hang out here and, just ignore me. So he stays out of the way of fish like that big Venusus there that was sort of creeping up on him in the back, who is probably twice his size. But, if you look at him, you'll see there really is no damage. And so he's been accepted very, 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 very smoothly. The other one I brought over, and this one was from quarantine, is the electric blue. This is the one that I picked up over at CK, if you remember that video that I released. And that video did very, very well. I think it's about 50,000 views. I don't know how many now, but I love the blue on this guy, and I was a bit worried. I was concerned because the blue is very similar and the shape is similar to the Fusco, and so I thought, uh-oh, is the Fusco going to consider this guy a threat and go after him? But he's actually been ignored and by the other fish, and he holds his own, even though he's a lot smaller and has a lot less weight and size. Maybe because I added so many at once, it's created enough confusion, and this Borlei is going to be able to have a little bit of peace and not have to be chased off every time he tries to get out from the corner. But as you can see, this fire hap is definitely on fire. Beautiful fish, and the only reason I wouldn't consider rehoming him, because he's a bit of a jerk fish, is just because he's so beautiful. And I just hope he doesn't end up being such a jerk that I have to get rid of him, because he's really quite a specimen, quite spectacular. But for the most part, the other fish have settled in well. The electric blue is able to hang out wherever he wants to hang out and doesn't really get harassed. He does have a good amount of attitude, And even though he's a lot smaller than that dragon blood, the dragon blood had to be taken out. So it's not really so much, as the saying goes, it's not so much the size of the dog in the fight, but the amount of fight in the dog. And this electric blue is a good example of that. He's he's a tough fish. People leave him alone, and I think he's going to do fine here in the 100, as is the living stone eye that you just saw fly by. And the Nimbochromis, this Buccochromis is also being left alone. You look at the side, look at the fins. Nobody's really messing with him. He's able to swim around freely and do what Buccochromis tend to do, which is find a section of the tank and just move up and down in that section endlessly. They tend to be a bit silly that way. And as far as cichlids go, usually not that aggressive, even though I have heard stories occasionally. And love the way this guy is settling in, and I'm even starting to see a little bit more blue in his face as he gets more comfortable. But I doubt I'll see his body get that fired up color he had before. The dragon blood is recovering nicely in the 30-gallon, had to be put back in quarantine. Previously, he really only had like 15 gallons because I had a divider in the tank, and he was sharing half of the tank with the electric blue, and the other half of the tank had the Buccochromis spectabilis. So now he's got the full run of this 30, so he can just kind of chill out and heal up. And the electric blue, of course, went to the 150, and the Buccochromis spectabilis was moved up to the 100. You can see him here. He has really settled in, is being ignored by the other fish, and really, you can see he's really just doing his thing. There's no fin damage, there's no marks on the side, so there's no real interest in him. No one really sees him as a threat, and that's great because I'm going to love watching him actually put on some size and eventually get that beautiful blue in the body and the face that Buccochromis spectabilis are known for. This one, of course, was picked up over at the Aquarium Depot down there in San Diego, and maybe you watched that video of that store. Quite an amazing store that I plan on visiting again, maybe even doing a live stream from that store. That would be really interesting. Well, whenever you move fish in or out of an African cichlid tank, there's bound to be some interesting developments. Sometimes it messes with the order of things, and certain fish have to assert themselves to make sure that the new fish don't try and bump them or lower them in the pecking order within the tank. And so whenever you take fish out or put fish in, you're disrupting things and in a tank that's already sort of settled down. And so you keep your fingers crossed, you watch it closely. If you ever add or remove fish, I always suggest that you be around for a few hours. Don't do it right before you go somewhere, because you might come back and find that one of them got killed off or is beaten very badly, and sometimes so badly they can't recover. So in my case, I did have that going on with the dragon blood, but I was able to pull him out, put him back into quarantine where he can heal up, get stronger, and then I'll try him in the 100. And maybe after he puts on some size and gets a little bit of attitude in that tank, a little bit of confidence and cockiness, I'll bring him over here to the 150. He wasn't ready now. And so when fish graduate to this bigger tank, there's two things that it takes. It takes both the size of the fish, but also the attitude. I mean, you'll notice that the living stone eye, the Nimbochromis living stone eye, is not as big as the dragon blood, and certainly the electric blue isn't. But those fish, what they lack in size, they make up in attitude. They're tougher fish. They fight back. They don't back down quite as easily. But so things to consider, when you're moving fish. So at any rate, let me know your experiences. Comment below. I'd like to hear your stories about adding or pulling fish out. What's happened with you? Any tips you might have, share them below. We all learn from each other, right? So thank you so much for tuning in. Comment, rate, share, and follow on Instagram at BEN.O.CICHLID, and visit and join the group BEN.O.CICHLID, where fish keepers get together and help each other out. All right? Thank you so much. That's it for me. Bye-bye.